Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is on the run because Israel just pulled off its most daring and devastating assassinations yet. In a handful of precision hits, Israel wiped out Iran's entire military top brass and took down several of its leading nuclear scientists. The dead include the Chief of Staff of the Iranian Armed Forces, the commander of the IRGC, and the commander of Iran's Emergency Command. With the leadership decapitated, the Iranian Armed Forces are running clueless. Even the Supreme Leader Khamenei is holed up in hiding, terrified he might be next. Under the codename Operation Rising Lion, over 200 Israeli fighter jets struck more than 100 carefully chosen targets, with at least 330 precision-guided munitions. Iran hasn't felt a blow of this scale since the Iran-Iraq War of the 1980s, and it definitely shattered Khamenei's belief that Tehran was untouchable. Beyond Iran's senior military commanders, Israel also struck several nuclear facilities, as well as key scientists who powered Iran's nuclear ambitions. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu justified the assault as a preemptive necessity, citing intelligence that Iran was just months away from nuclear weapon capability and was amassing missiles that could kill millions even without a nuclear payload. For Jerusalem, it was a do-or-die moment, a one-time window to cripple Iran's nuclear program and gut the IRGC machinery along with it. Now, the IRGC, better known as the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, is Iran's elite paramilitary force, founded shortly after Iran's 1979 Islamic Revolution and personally handpicked by Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei himself. The IRGC's primary purpose has always been to protect the revolution, the Supreme Leader, and the Islamic regime at all costs, even against threats from within. Over time, it has grown into a self-contained fighting force with its own ground troops, naval squadrons, a dedicated air wing, and an intelligence apparatus that rivals the Ministry of Intelligence. It also oversees Iran's ballistic missile program and drone fleet. What makes the IRGC even more dangerous, though, is its networks of proxy forces. It bankrolls and controls groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, Shiite militias in Iraq, and Hamas in Gaza. Each of these proxies acts as an arm of Iran's forward defense, destabilizing Israel and other Western interests without Tehran having to deploy its own soldiers. In short, the IRGC built a shadow empire across the Middle East. Whenever there's a conflict in the region that's hostile to Israel and Western interests, you'll almost always find a connection to the IRGC, either by providing weapons, training, planning, or just funding it. Rather than hunting down these proxy groups one by one, a process that could drag on for years, Israel went straight for the source of the power, the IRGC's top leadership. At the very top was Major General Hussein Salami, the commander-in-chief since 2019 and Supreme Leader Khamenei's closest and most trusted lieutenant. Salami was the mastermind behind Iran's aggressive regional posture. Once he took command, the IRGC doubled down on proxy warfare. Salami funneled hundreds of millions of dollars and advanced weaponry into Hezbollah's rocket arsenals. He also helped the Quds forces ramp up overt and covert operations throughout Syria and Iraq. In Yemen, under Salami's orders, swarms of uncrewed attack drones began striking strategic targets, from military installations to commercial ships in the Red Sea. He personally oversaw the programs that directly threatened Israel's northern border and targeted U.S. forces across the Middle East. Many times before, Salami has openly vowed to wipe Israel off the map, warning that Iran is ready for any war. Ironically, it seems that Salami was so confident Israel would never dare strike Iran that mere hours before the attack, he reportedly laughed off Israeli threats. Yet Salami went to bed Thursday night, only to be killed with a missile delivered straight to his bed. Iranian state media confirmed that he was among the few top targets of the very first wave of Israeli airstrikes. The missile strike was so precise and devastating that Salami and several of his bodyguards died instantly. Images from Tehran showed his high-rise building with its top floors completely gutted. Surprisingly, news of Salami's death sparked celebrations among many Iranians because he was not only brutal towards foreign adversaries, but also ruthless against his own citizens. Since 2019, Salami had directed violent crackdowns against protesters, journalists, activists, and political opponents. Hundreds of Iranians were killed under his watch, thousands more injured, and many arrested or simply disappeared. But with General Salami now dead, it leaves the IRGC without its top leader at a critical moment. Though Tehran quickly appointed veteran IRGC General Ahmad Vahidi as a temporary replacement, Salami's decades of battlefield experience, strategic thinking, and personal authority won't be easily replaced. More importantly, Salami held the absolute trust and confidence of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei himself, who greatly valued his uncompromising loyalty and hardline stance. Yet right now, that loss of Salami might be the least of Khamenei's worries. While Israel has never previously targeted the Ayatollah directly, this audacious strike signals that all bets may be off now. After all, if it was this shockingly easy to eliminate the third most powerful man in Iran, then Khamenei must surely be worried that he could be next. Alongside Salami, another critically important figure killed was Major General Gholam Ali Rashid, a legendary Iranian military strategist who served as the commander of the Khatam al-Anbiya Central Headquarters, Iran's nerve center for war planning, military operations, and strategic coordination across all branches of the armed forces. If Iran ever had to go to war or orchestrate large-scale military operations, Rashid would have been the man responsible for directing the entire effort. What truly set Rashid apart was his decades of battlefield experience. He was among the very few senior commanders remaining from the brutal 8-year Iran-Iraq War of the 1980s. Rashid fought closely alongside legendary IRGC leaders like Qasem Soleimani, building a formidable reputation among Iran's military elite. His first-hand knowledge of both conventional warfare and asymmetric tactics was unmatched, making him a living repository of military history, strategy, and institutional know-how. When the Israeli missiles began to rain down on Tehran, Rashid was reportedly inside his home, unaware of the attack until it was too late. Now, Iran finds itself unable to effectively retaliate, even if it desperately wanted to. Precisely because it lost their main strategist, Rashid was also the architect behind carefully coordinating synchronized attacks against Israel, aligning Iran's own military actions with simultaneous attacks from regional allies and proxy militias, generating maximum pressure and confusion across multiple fronts. Without Rashid at the helm, pulling off such complex multi-front assaults is nearly impossible. Even more damaging is that Rashid also served as a critical bridge between Iran's regular army and the elite IRGC forces. Historically, these two military forces operated under separate command structures, often leading to internal rivalries and fragmented decision-making. Rashid, from his command post at Khatam al-Anbiya, was the glue holding these factions together, bridging internal divides, easing tensions, and ensuring cohesive and unified operations. But now, with both Salami and Rashid dead, both forces are scrambling for their next orders. Apart from foreign attacks, Iran might also face not just immediate confusion and paralysis of its military, but also the very real risk of internal power struggles and infighting at the highest levels of its defense establishment. Until a successor emerges who commands the same level of respect, trust, and experience, Iran's military could remain permanently fractured, unable to put up any effective coordinated retaliation against Israeli forces. At this point, Iran would normally turn to its armed forces chief of staff, Major General Mohammad Bagheri, but Israel eliminated him as well. Bagheri was Iran's highest-ranking military officer, the primary figure tasked with coordinating Iran's army, navy, air force, and the IRGC, all directly under the supreme leader's authority. He was also targeted in that same opening wave of precision attacks that took out Major General Salami and Major General Rashid. Just like Salami and Rashid, Bagheri played a key role in modernizing Iran's military capabilities. He personally oversaw ambitious programs to develop advanced indigenous drone and missile technologies, projects that empowered Iran's regional influence and gave its leaders enough strategic confidence to push uranium enrichment closer and closer to weapons-grade levels. Bagheri also took the lead on diplomacy, actively building crucial military partnerships with global powers like Russia and China, partnerships that significantly bolstered Iran's geopolitical strength and influence. Without Bagheri's leadership, coordination across Iran's regular army, navy, air defense forces, and the elite IRGC is severely weakened. Although the IRGC often operated with a degree of autonomy, Bagheri's office was ultimately where major national defense decisions were finalized. Supreme Leader Khamenei regularly relied on Bagheri's seasoned military judgment, strategic insight, and trusted advice. But now, within just a few devastating hours and precision strikes, Iran's entire military hierarchy has been effectively decapitated. The only figures left in charge are inexperienced underlings, and a supreme leader who himself is running scared, forced to rely desperately on subordinates to carry out his orders. Apart from these top three commanders, dozens of other senior Iranian military leaders have also been targeted and eliminated. Among those reportedly killed are the commander of the IRGC's elite Quds Force, Brigadier General Esmail Khani, Aerospace Force Commander, Brigadier General Amir Ali Hajizadeh, IRGC Navy Commander, Admiral Ali Tangsiri, and Ground Forces Commander, Mohammad Pakpour. According to one report, at least 20 other high-ranking commanders were wiped out in a single strike at a major IRGC command center, and that's just one of several targeted locations. In short, the extent of the damage to Iran's senior military leadership is devastating, and it might be impossible to fully recover from. Israel didn't just decapitate Iran's military hierarchy, they systematically removed almost all viable replacements as well, effectively crippling the IRGC's capacity to quickly reorganize and respond. From Supreme Leader Khamenei's perspective, these men were pillars of the Islamic Republic. Many of them were protégés of his or comrades from revolutionary days. Khamenei has always leaned heavily on the IRGC to enforce his will, both externally in projecting power and internally in quelling dissent. Now he is left with little choice but to desperately piece together a functioning command from whoever remains. As mentioned earlier, Netanyahu justified this massive assault by stressing the need to stop Iran from ever developing nuclear weapons. So alongside striking Iran's military installations and senior commanders, Israel also unleashed a coordinated wave of assassinations targeting Iran's elite nuclear scientists and key nuclear facilities. Just to be clear, this isn't the first time Israel has targeted Iranian nuclear experts. Over the past 15 years, several Iranian nuclear scientists have died under mysterious and violent circumstances, often through car bombings using magnetic explosives or covert shootings done by Israel's intelligence agency Mossad. But this time, it was total annihilation. Never before has Israel succeeded in eliminating so many leading nuclear experts at once. As of now, at least 6 prominent Iranian nuclear scientists have been confirmed killed. Among them, 2 stood out as especially critical targets: Dr. Feridun Abbasi Davani and Dr. Mohammad Taranchi. Dr. Feridun Abbasi Davani was one of Iran's most experienced and influential nuclear physicists, with a PhD in nuclear physics from Shahid Beheshti University. Abbasi was deeply involved in Iran's uranium enrichment research, and according to Western intelligence, even contributed to studies on potential nuclear weaponization. In fact, this wasn't the first attempt on Abbasi's life. Back in 2010, on November 29th, he survived an assassination attempt when motorcycle-riding assailants attached a bomb directly to his car in Tehran, a coordinated strike that killed another nuclear scientist, Majid Shahriari, that same day. Abbasi narrowly escaped by jumping out of the vehicle moments before it exploded, suffering injuries but surviving. Following this near-death experience, Abbasi became even more influential. From 2010 to 2013, he served as head of Iran's Atomic Energy Organization, overseeing critical stages of uranium enrichment and nuclear technology development. Later, he transitioned into politics. If anyone embodied Iran's determination to push its nuclear program forward despite sanctions and sabotage, it was Abbasi. According to reports on Iranian state TV, Dr. Abbasi was assassinated at his home along with his wife and child. The death of Abbasi represents both a scientific and symbolic blow to Iran, one of the country's leading nuclear experts brutally eliminated right in front of his own family. The other prominent scientist publicly identified by Iranian media was Dr. Mohammad Taranchi. Taranchi was also a highly respected academic, reportedly serving as the Dean of Nuclear Engineering at Shahid Beheshti University. Like Abbasi, Taranchi was deeply involved in critical nuclear research, making him another key target. He too was killed on the same night, presumably by another precision strike or targeted assassination at his residence. Reports also indicate that multiple other top nuclear engineers and specialists were simultaneously targeted. Iranian outlets have confirmed at least 2 additional high-profile names among the casualties: Dr. Abdulhamid Menasher and Dr. Ahmad Azofagari, both senior experts affiliated with prestigious nuclear engineering facilities. All of these assassinations, from Iran's senior military leadership to their top nuclear scientists, took place within mere hours of each other, which goes to show the exceptional depth of Israeli intelligence and strategic planning. Clearly, Israel's aim wasn't merely limited to destroying physical nuclear infrastructure like the critical Natanz enrichment facility, which was heavily damaged. Instead, they deliberately targeted the specialized human expertise, the nuclear scientists, engineers, and strategic planners who could rapidly rebuild or bypass the physical damage. By eliminating both the physical and intellectual foundations simultaneously, Israel has effectively crippled Iran's capability to quickly recover or resume its nuclear ambitions. As expected, Iran has condemned these killings as blatant war crimes, emphasizing that many of the strikes hit residential buildings, leading inevitably to some civilian casualties, given that missiles directly targeted the homes of key figures. While the resulting international outrage and legal challenges will unfold for months or even years, tactically speaking, Israel has unquestionably achieved its primary objective, and if Iran decides to escalate matters further, Israel has already sent out the clearest possible warning about what comes next: the final blow, the assassination of the Supreme Leader himself. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei now faces perhaps the greatest crisis of his 36-year rule. His regime has never before faced such an overwhelming loss all at once, and internally, this couldn't have come at a worse time for the Supreme Leader. Over recent years, Iran has been boiling with widespread frustration and anger. The massive nationwide protests of 2019 and 2020 sparked by sudden fuel price hikes and deep-seated resentment toward government corruption, were violently suppressed by the IRGC's Basiji militia, leaving hundreds dead and thousands imprisoned. In 2022, the regime faced unprecedented women-led protests, ignited by the tragic death of Mahsa Amini, who died in the custody of Iran's morality police. Externally, the regime was already struggling with a legitimacy crisis among large segments of the population, relying heavily on the IRGC and its intelligence services to forcefully suppress dissent and maintain order. But now, with all the leaders dead, the suppressed protests could quickly flare back into nationwide unrest. Many citizens, even those previously supportive or indifferent to the regime, are expressing anger, humiliation, and frustration over their leadership's dramatic failure to protect the country. To regime opponents, however, this crisis is a cause for quiet celebration. Opposition media outlets such as the London-based Iran International have eagerly amplified Israel's claims that Iran's military leadership was completely decapitated, framing it clearly as proof of the regime's exposed weakness and incompetence. Khamenei is likely aware of this dynamic, which explains why, in a televised statement, he vowed that Israel would face severe punishment for what he called a grave crime. He tried his best to project strength and determination, warning that Israel has prepared a bitter and painful fate for itself and will certainly receive it. But you and I both know how dire Iran's situation truly is at this moment. Iran's military hierarchy is in chaos, its nuclear program is crippled, and the regime's most powerful commanders and scientists are dead. Perhaps the worst betrayal comes from Russia and China. Both Moscow and Beijing previously pledged unwavering support to Iran, yet at Tehran's hour of greatest need, they're nowhere to be found. This betrayal is especially devastating, as Khamenei's regime has counted heavily on their diplomatic and military backing. Meanwhile, Israel has the backing of the United States, Germany, France, NATO, and the EU, all openly supporting Israel's actions and strongly backing its right to neutralize Iran's nuclear threat. So retaliation isn't going to be easy for Khamenei. He must carefully weigh his response, choosing actions strong enough to reassure regime loyalists and satisfy the hardliners' calls for vengeance, yet carefully calibrated to avoid an all-out war that Iran is simply not equipped to fight right now, which might also risk him being arrested. In truth, the best, and perhaps only realistic option left for Khamenei now is diplomatic. Rather than risking further humiliation or outright regime collapse through prolonged conflict, the safest path forward is likely reaching a renewed deal with the United States and Western allies over Iran's nuclear ambitions.